Good afternoon, students. Welcome to Sankalp Learning Classes. Today we are discussing the some important questions from the chapter Life Processes. Okay, already we have discussed some questions from this chapter. So that is uh, multiple choice questions, 1 mark questions. So in today's class we are discussing the short answer questions as well as long answer question. Long answer question means it may be a 3 mark 4 mark questions. Okay, so like this we are discussing the important questions from this chapter. I hope all are ready to listen the class. So now please take your notebook and note down the important questions and try to write the yes, I know you know all these questions and all these concept, but try to concentrate on this and note down the important points and important questions. Okay, yes, let us start with the first question. Compare the functions of xylem tissue with that of phloem tissue. This is the question A. And in question B, explain the process of exchange of gases that takes place through the stomata in plants. Okay. Here, the first question, compare the functions of xylem tissue with that of the phloem. So here, xylem, make the two columns, xylem, and in another column, so I should write about the phloem. Right. Here, xylem, that is meant for the transportation of the water, which is water conducting tissue. I will write it shortly. Please note down it. Xylem transports the water in plants, and phloem, it transports the food materials, which is prepared during the photosynthesis. Then xylem, which uses the some simple physical forces, some simple physical force, simple physical force used to used to transport the transport the water from roots to the shoots. Simple physical forces are used to transport the water from roots to the shoots. Then here phloem, it uses the energy from the ATP, which uses the ATP to transport the food. ATP is used to transport the food. Okay. Then here the transportation of water, that is in a single direction, because from roots to the shoots, not from shoots to the other parts like that. So directly from roots to the shoots, single direction. Here phloem, it transport the food in a multiple direction, multiple direction, because sometimes the food produced in a leaves, the food that will transport to the different parts of the plants, for example roots, shoots, or some other parts of the or leaves. So that is the multiple direction. Okay, so like this you should compare the functions of the xylem with the phloem. Okay, second question. Explain the process of exchange of gases that takes place through the stomata. How the exchange of gases takes place through the stomata? Here, the stomata are the tiny pores present in the leaves through which exchange of gases takes place. Each stomata has pair of guard cells which controls the opening and closing of the stomata. How the exchange of gases takes place? So with the help of the guard cells which maintain the opening and closing of the stomata. During the photosynthesis, during the photosynthesis, carbon dioxide enter inside through the stomata and oxygen is out. So that is move out through the stomata, and during the respiration in plants, during the respiration, oxygen enters through the stomata and carbon dioxide is removed through the stomata. So like this, the exchange of gases takes place with the help of the stomata. Okay. So these things you have to explain. I hope you got the answer. Next question. How is the structure of human heart supportive in transporting oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood? Explain. The first question is, how is the structure of human heart is supportive in transporting the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood separately? So this is the 2 mark question. A is the 2 mark question. Then B is also a 2 mark question. Totally it is a 4 mark question. In humans, how is digested food is absorbed by the blood? Mention the function of blood transporting the necessary materials. How the functions of what is how the digested food is absorbed by the blood, and mention the function of blood in the transporting necessary materials. For these two questions, we have to see the answer now. First question. The right and left region of the heart are separated by a wall muscle called septum, which separate the left and right part of the heart, and that is helpful for the separation of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. And the right ventricle pumps the blood to the lungs for reoxygenation through the pulmonary arteries. The right semilunar walls close and prevent the blood from the flowing back into the heart. So this is how the human heart is supportive to maintain the oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood separately. Next question. How the blood transport the essential nutrients in our body? Here plasma transports the carbon dioxide, food, water and some nitrogenous waste. Here the food, that is the essential material in our body, and water, so that is also essential material, that is transported by the plasma, and RBC transports the oxygen. So the red blood cells, they have the special pigment that is called as a hemoglobin, which has affinity towards the oxygen. So the RBC is responsible for the transport of the oxygen. This is how the transportation of the oxygen and the other material takes place in our body. Then how the digested food is, so this is the first question. In human, how the digested food is absorbed by the blood? The digested food is absorbed by the blood through the special structure present in a walls of the small intestine, that is called as villi. Villi are the finger like structures. They are helpful for the absorption of the nutrients, and they transport it into the blood. So note down the questions. Next question. Write the two difference between the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Write any two differences between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Please note down the question. Yes. Here, aerobic respiration, where the glucose is converted into pyruvate in cytoplasm, and in the presence of oxygen, pyruvate converted into carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the mitochondria. Here, the first step is that is in the cytoplasm, and what are the products formed here? Carbon dioxide, water, and energy, and it takes place in mitochondria. But in case of anaerobic respiration, glucose converted into pyruvate, but in the absence of the oxygen, it convert into ethanol, carbon dioxide, energy. So what are the products formed in the anaerobic respiration in yeast? That is ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. In case of the low oxygen level, the muscle cells, they perform the anaerobic respiration and they produce the lactic acid and energy. They produce the lactic acid and energy. In case of the aerobic respiration, more energy is released. More energy is released compared to the anaerobic respiration. Less energy released. Okay, less energy is released. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. And here more energy is released compared to the anaerobic respiration. Here less energy is released. And what are the products? Aerobic respiration, carbon dioxide, water, and energy is formed. Here, in case of yeast, it produces the ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. Here, alcohol is produced. And in case of the muscle cells, it produces the lactic acid. Okay. So, that is the differences between the aerobic respiration and the anaerobic respiration. Next question. Observe the given below figures. So the observe the given diagrams and write the answer for the questions. Here, first question is, which figure indicates the massive amount of exchange of gases? Y. Name the parts X and Y. What is the function of part X? Here, you should write the observe the diagram and write the answer for this question. Okay. So this diagram that indicates the open stomata and closed stomata, right? Here, which figure indicates the massive exchange of gases? Y. Here, the figure 1, it indicates the massive exchange of the gases because it is a open stomata. Open stomata. Figure 1 indicates the massive exchange of gases because it is an open stomata where the stomatal pores are open. But here in the figure 2, it is closed. There is no exchange of the gases takes place. Okay. So like this, you should write the answer. Question B, name the parts X and Y. What is the function of part X? So question B, so this is X. X is guard cells. Guard cells. X guard cell. Y, that is stomatal pore. Here, what is the function of the guard cells? They help for the opening and closing of the stomata. Opening and closing of stomata. Opening and closing of stomata is controlled by the guard cells. What is the function? Opening and closing of the stomata controlled by the guard cells. That is the function of the guard cells. So like this, you should write the answer. Please note down the question. I will give you 1 minute. Next question. Explain the digestion of food materials in stomach and small intestine. So one of the very important question, very important question. Explain the digestion in the small intestine, stomach and the small intestine. So sometimes they will ask separately, explain the digestion in the stomach and explain the digestion in the small intestine. Separately they may ask. Okay. So here they asked in together, that is stomach and the small intestine. Very important questions. Please note down the question. After that, we'll see the answer. Okay. Here, in the stomach, gastric glands are present in the walls of the stomach, secrete the HCl, mucus, and pepsin. So these three chemicals, they are released in the stomach: HCl, mucus, and pepsin through the gastric glands. Pepsin break down the proteins. Hydrochloric acid creates an acidic medium which facilitate the action of the enzyme pepsin. What is the function of the hydrochloric acid? It provides the acidic medium to break down of the protein. So the pepsin that break down the protein in the presence of the acidic medium only, that is created by the HCl. And the mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach from the action of the acid under normal condition. It prevents the walls of the stomach, that is the digestion that happens in the stomach. Okay. Then next thing is the small intestine. How the digestion takes place in the small intestine? This takes place in 3 steps. Okay. So that 3 steps you have to write clearly. The first thing is the food is mixed in a bile from the liver and pancreatic juice in the pancreas. So the um, liver that releases the bile juice and the pancreas that releases the pancreatic juice into the small intestine. Here in the small intestine, bile breaks down the fats into small globules. The bile juice that break down the fats, they are in a large globules into a small globules. And the pancreatic juice which contain the two enzymes, that is important, you have to mention trypsin and one more enzyme, that is lipase. So here trypsin act on the proteins and lipase break down the fat further. Okay, the small globules of fat is break down by the lipase enzyme that is present in the pancreatic juice. Next, the walls of the small intestine secrete the intestinal juice. It contains the enzymes which helps to convert the carbohydrate into glucose, proteins into amino acids, and fats into fatty acid and glycerol. So this is how the digestion takes place in the small intestine. First, with the help of bile juice, which is secreted by the liver, which act on the uh, fats, and pancreatic juice which contain the enzymes trypsin and lipase which act on protein and fats, and final digestion takes place with the help of enzymes present in the intestinal juice. So this intestinal juice, how it convert? Finally, carbohydrates will convert into glucose, proteins into amino acids, and fats into fatty acids and glycerol. So this is how the digestion takes place in the small intestine. Very important question. Please note down this. I hope you know the answer for this question. Next question. Explain the role of xylem and phloem tissue in the transportation of materials in plants. How the xylem and phloem tissues are help in the transportation of the food materials in plants. Okay. Here, the xylem tissue, vessels and tracheids of the roots, stems, and leaves are interconnected. In xylem tissue, the vessel tracheids of this xylem, so that is interconnected in root, stem, and leaves. So they form the continuous system of water conducting channel. So that reaches from roots to the shoots of the plant. At the roots, cells in contact with the soil actively take up the ions, and they create the concentration gradient between the ions between the roots and the soil. There is a difference in the concentration between the root and the soil. Then water therefore moves into the root from the soil to eliminate this difference. Then this means that there is a steady movement of water into root xylem, creating a column of water that is steadily pushed upward. So like that the water moves from roots to the shoots. Okay. So this is the function of the xylem. And phloem. What is the function of the phloem? Explain the functions of the phloem. Material like sucrose is transferred into phloem tissue using the ATP, energy from the ATP. ATP is used here, and this increases the osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing the water to move into it. Then the water will move into the tissue, then which create the osmotic pressure. So this pressure, so that is helping for the transportation of the food from higher pressure to the lower pressure. So that the phloem is able to transport the food from higher pressure to the lower pressure where there is a needs. Okay. So like this the transportation of the food takes place in the phloem. Next question. Which molecule is formed during the first step of cellular respiration by the breakdown of the glucose molecule in the cytoplasm? Mention the types of respiration and write any two difference between them. Here, which molecule is formed during the first step of cellular respiration by the breakdown of the glucose molecule in the cytoplasm? Glucose, when breakdown in the cytoplasm, which molecule is formed? Glucose breakdown into pyruvate. That is the 3-carbon compound, pyruvate. Glucose breakdown into pyruvate. Mention the types of respiration. So what are the types of respiration? Aerobic respiration, aerobic respiration and anaerobic, anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. What are the difference between the aerobic and anaerobic respiration? Already we have seen that question. Already we know the answer for that question. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of the oxygen where the breakdown of the pyruvate molecule takes place. Anaerobic respiration in the absence of the oxygen. And aerobic respiration that produces the large amount of energy compared to the anaerobic respiration. So anaerobic respiration produces the less energy. Then the products in the aerobic respiration, carbon dioxide, water, and energy is released. In the anaerobic respiration, ethanol is released as well as carbon dioxide and energy. In case of the muscle cells, it releases the lactic acids. So that is the difference. Already we know the difference. So I just orally explained that. I hope this question is clear. Please note down the question. Next question. Mention the events that occur during the photosynthesis in plants. What are the methods used by the plants to get rid of excretory products? Very important question. This is very, very important. Mention the events that occur during the photosynthesis in plants. What are the methods used by the plants to get rid of the excretory products? Here, the first question. What are the events occur during the photosynthesis? First step is absorption of light energy by chlorophyll, conversion of light energy to chemical energy, and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates, the carbon dioxide that convert into carbohydrates. So these are the very important steps that takes place in the photosynthesis. This question is also repeatedly asked question in a different year question paper. Okay, ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳಿರುವಂತ ಕ್ವಶನ್. Then how the excretion takes place, how the waste products are removed by the plants. In plants, gaseous waste products produced during the respiration, carbon dioxide and photosynthesis oxygen are removed through the stomata. Excess water is removed through the stomata in the process. That process is called as a transpiration. That is also a waste removal process. And some waste products stored in the leaves and removed when the leaves are dry and fall off. The some waste products, they are stored in the leaves of the plants, and when they fall off, that is removed by the plants. Okay, so these are the different methods, and some methods that also include, so they store some waste products in the vacuoles. Other waste products like resins and gums, especially in the old xylem. Plants also excrete some waste substances into the soil around them. So they excrete through the soil also. Means the waste products released to the soil through the part of the plant which is connected to the soil. Okay, so these are the different methods which are used by the plants to get rid of the waste products. Next question. Draw the diagram showing the structure of nephron and label the glomerulus. Very important diagram. Note down the question. Draw the diagram showing the structure of nephron and label the glomerulus. So this is the structure of the nephron. Very important diagram. So dear students, try to practice it daily or twice or thrice in a week, because it is one of the very important question. It can be asked in your board exam. Okay, here, and practice all the parts, not only one or two parts. You have to practice all the parts which are important. Glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, and collecting duct. So these all are the very important parts. So please note down these all plants parts, and please practice the diagram. Next question. Draw the diagram showing the structure of human excretory system and label the ureter. The diagram which shows the human excretory system. One of the very important question. So for this, you should draw the diagram, human excretory system diagram, and you have to label the ureter. Okay. Here, please practice this diagram also. This is also one of the important diagram from this chapter. Next question. So this is also a diagram. So just I'm telling which are the important diagrams from this chapter. Draw the diagram showing the sectional view of the human heart. Label the following parts: aorta and the chamber of the heart which that receives the deoxygenated blood. So this question also repeated question. Here they ask to label the chamber of the heart that receives the deoxygenated blood. Which receives the deoxygenated blood, that is the right atrium. Here you have to mention the all four chambers: left atrium, right atrium, left ventricle, then right atrium, septum, and pulmonary veins, pulmonary arteries, vena upper vena cava, and aorta. So these all are very important parts. Please practice this along with the diagram. Okay, along with the diagram, you have to mention the all the parts also. One of the important diagram. Next question. Explain the stages of double circulation of the blood in humans. So, how the double circulation takes place in humans, that we have to explain. Note down the question. Explain the stages of double circulation of the blood in humans. Here, the first step is oxygen rich blood from the lungs comes to thin walled upper chamber of the heart. It is called as a left atrium. Here, I just want to explain. The oxygen rich blood that is received by the left atrium through the pulmonary veins. The oxygen rich blood that enters to the upper chamber of the heart, that is the left atrium. When the left atrium contracts, the blood will move to the left ventricle. Then when the left ventricle contracts, the blood moves to the aorta, to the all the parts of the body. So this is how the oxygenated blood that transport in the heart, and deoxygenated blood that is collected by the vena cava from the all the parts of the body, then which is released into the right atrium. When the right atrium contracts, so it moves to the right ventricle. When the right ventricle in the relaxation, which receives the the blood from the right atrium, then the blood that when the right ventricle contracts, the blood moves inside the pulmonary arteries. These pulmonary arteries carry the deoxygenated blood to the lungs for the purification. Okay, so this is how the uh, very simple explanation of the double circulation, but you have to write like this. So this is for your understanding purpose and this is for your examination purpose. Okay, please note down this. The left atrium relaxes when it collecting this blood, then it then contracts while to the next chamber. The left ventricle relaxes so that the blood transferred to it. Then when the ventricle contracts, the blood pumped through the to the aorta, and aorta pump it to the all the parts of the body. Then deoxygenated blood comes from the all the parts of the body and which is received by the upper chamber, that is the right atrium. Then as the atrium contracts, the corresponding lower chamber, the ventricle dilates and which receives the deoxygenated blood. When the ventricle contracts, the blood pumps to the lungs for the oxygenation. So since the blood flows through the twice in one cycle called a double circulation. So for one cycle, the blood flows two times through the heart. So it is called as a double circulation. Next question. Give reason. Ventricles of human heart have thick wall. It is necessary to separate oxygenated and deoxygenated blood in mammals and birds. So please note down the question here. This is 1 mark question and this is also 1 mark question. You have to write the correct reason for these questions. Okay. Next, first, ventricles pump the blood to the different organs. Its walls are thicker than the atria. They pump the blood to the different organs. So because of that reason, it has the thicker walls than the atria. Next one, separating the blood allows for more efficient supply of the oxygen to the body cells. This is important for animals like mammals and birds which have high energy needs and constantly use the energy to maintain their body temperature. For birds and mammals, they need more energy to maintain their body temperature constantly. So you know that human body temperature is constant, right? It is not changing with the environment. So to maintain their body temperature, they need more energy, and the separate blood, the oxygen and deoxygenated blood separation, that allows the more oxygenated blood supply to the body cells, which releases the more energy. Okay, for this reason, there is a need of separation of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood in mammals and as well as in birds. Please note down the answer. Next question. Which are the factors essential for the photosynthesis? Mention the events that occur during the process and represent this process by a balanced chemical equation. Already we know the answer for this question. Which are the factors essential for the photosynthesis? Yes, which are the factors essential for the photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide, water, water and minerals, chlorophyll pigment, then sunlight. So these are the essential factors for the photosynthesis: carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll and sunlight. Mention the events occur during the process. So you know that already we have discussed this point, that is the events occur during the photosynthesis. Very important. Absorption of light energy by chlorophyll, conversion of light energy to the chemical energy, and water molecules split into hydrogen and oxygen, and reduction of the carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. And next question is, represent this process by balanced chemical equation. So you should write the balanced chemical equation for this question. So here, carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, it produces the C6H12O6 plus O oxygen plus water. So these are the products formed during the photosynthesis, but you have to balance this. Here we'll add 6 carbon, then oxygen will be 12. Here 6 plus, so I have to add 6 oxygen here. Then the hydrogen is 12 here. So here also hydrogen is there. So I will add 6. So if I add 12, so here also 6, right? So like this, you should balance the chemical reaction. Just check it once whether it is correct or not. So that is very important to write the balanced chemical equation for this reaction. Next question. How are the functions of arteries, veins and capillaries are interrelated in the circulation of the blood? Note down the question. How are the functions of arteries, veins and capillaries are interrelated? Both arteries, veins and capillaries are interrelated in case of the circulation of the blood. Okay. Yes. Here arteries, they carry the bloods to uh, the organs to the body cells. So these are the blood emerges from the heart under high pressure. So the arteries have the thick elastic walls. They supply the oxygenated blood, and veins, they collect the deoxygenated blood, and they transfer it back to the heart. So which do not have the thick walls compared to the arteries. And um, these capillaries, on reaching the organ, the artery divides into smaller and smaller vessels to bring the blood contact with the all individual cells. So for example, this is the artery, okay, which is carrying the oxygenated blood. So when it reach the particular cell, so it will divide into a smaller and smaller blood vessel, so that is called as capillary. So here there is a cell which receives the oxygenated blood through the capillary. So inside the cell, there is a respiration takes place, and breakdown of the glucose takes place, and the carbon dioxide is released. So this carbon dioxide again carried by the blood through the small capillaries. Okay, so again this is the capillary, and they will join and form the large vein, that is called as a veins. So this the arteries, capillaries and veins are interconnected, because so these capillaries, they reach the individual cells, and where the respiration takes place and carbon dioxide is released, then the carbon dioxide is carried by the capillaries and they join to form the veins. So this is how the functions of these three are interrelated in the circulation of the blood. Okay, so this is one of the very important question. Please note down the question. Okay, yes, thank you students. So if you have any doubts, you can ask. So I will stop the class here. We'll continue in the next class. Thank you.